I thought I was going on a mission trip to be a hero. Seriously? I had these grand visions of changing lives and bringing hope to the hopeless. I pictured myself as some kind of spiritual superhero, swooping into a foreign country to fix all their problems with my faith and good intentions. But the truth? I was the one who was hopeless. I was cold, I was lonely, and the very people I was there to serve, well, they weren't exactly kind. I thought I knew what faith was, but it took being stripped of all my comforts for God to show me I didn't have a clue. Before this trip, my faith was just comfortable. It was a Sunday morning thing, a checklist of good deeds, and this quiet confidence that I was on the right track. It fit so neatly into my life, never really asking too much of me, never pushing me out of my comfort zone. I signed up for the mission trip not because of some deep, earth-shattering call from God, but because it sounded like an adventure. It was something that would look good, feel good, and just confirm what I already believed, that I was a pretty decent Christian. I prayed for growth, but what I really wanted was a spiritual mountaintop experience. A cool story to tell, a feeling of accomplishment. I had no idea that real growth happens in the valley, in the dark, in the places we'd never choose to go ourselves. I asked God to strengthen my faith, and He answered by putting me in a situation that almost broke it. I went on this mission trip to save the world, but instead, I found myself shivering in a tiny room, thousands of miles from home, feeling completely and utterly alone. I was surrounded by strangers who didn't seem to like me, facing hardships I was not prepared for, and questioning everything I thought I believed about God. It was right there, in that place, with nothing left to rely on, that I finally learned what faith actually is. The unkindness. The first thing to grumble about was my own self-righteousness. I arrived with a big smile and a desperate need to be liked, to be the helpful Caribbean woman everyone just adored. I was there to serve, after all. But the community wasn't interested in my performance. They were tired, burdened by their own struggles, and they just didn't have the energy to coddle my fragile ego. My attempts to help were usually met with curt dismissals or just indifferent stares. Conversations were strained. I felt less like a missionary and more like a massive inconvenience, especially when cooking meals took up most of my daily tasks. That night, I wrote in my journal, "God, why did you bring me here? These people don't want me. I'm not doing any good." My pride was so wounded. I had come to be a blessing, but I just felt like a burden. The kindness I expected to give and get was just gone. And it was this initial shock, this head-on collision with my own need for approval, that started to strip away the first layer of my comfortable faith. I wasn't the hero of this story. And the painful part was realizing that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't about me at all. The freezing nights. The next thing to go was my physical comfort. The place we stayed was a simple, concrete building. During the day, the sun made it bearable, but at night, this deep, penetrating cold would just settle into the walls. I had one blanket. That's it. Every single night, I would curl up, fully dressed in every layer I owned, and still shiver for hours. The cold wasn't just uncomfortable, it was relentless. It seeped into my bones and made sleep this desperate, fleeting thing I could never quite catch. Those long, dark, freezing nights became a kind of spiritual battleground. With no distractions, no phone to scroll, no TV to watch, it was just me and the shivering darkness. And in that darkness, my prayers got raw and desperate. At first, they were just angry. "God, can't you at least keep me warm? I'm here for you. This is the least you could do." I tried bargaining with him. I pleaded. I complained. My prayers were just a monologue of my own misery. I was so focused on what I didn't have, warmth, comfort, a decent night's sleep, that I couldn't see anything else. I felt abandoned. It seemed like such a small thing to ask for, a little bit of warmth. The silence that answered my prayers felt like proof that God didn't care. My faith, which had felt so strong in a heated house with a soft bed, now felt thin and fragile in that cold room. It was a faith built on the assumption that God's job was to keep me comfortable and happy. And now that I was neither, the whole structure started to wobble. This physical hardship was teaching me a brutal lesson. My reliance wasn't actually on God, but on the comforts He gave me. And when those were gone, I found out I had very little left. The isolation. The final and deepest hardship was the isolation. It wasn't just being far from home. It was a soul-deep loneliness. During the day, I was surrounded by people, but I felt invisible. My teammates were all dealing with their own stuff, and we all just kind of retreated into our own private worlds of discomfort. In the evenings, there was no internet, no way to call home and hear a familiar voice. I was completely cut off from my entire support system. This total isolation was the final blow. With no one to perform for, no one to vent to, and zero distractions from the chaos inside me, I was forced to face the person I was when no one was watching. And I really didn't like what I saw. I was proud. I was weak. I was full of doubt. My faith felt like a hollow shell. It was during this intense solitude that the turning point finally came. One night, shivering under my blanket, after all my angry prayers had faded into exhausted silence, something shifted. I had nothing left. No pride, no comfort, no one to talk to. It was in that place of absolute zero that a new kind of prayer came out. It wasn't a request. It wasn't a complaint. It was just one word, help, and right there, in that barren place, I finally heard God clearly for the first time. It wasn't an audible voice, but this profound sense of presence that filled the cold room. The thought that entered my mind wasn't, I will make you comfortable, but, I am here. I'd known Hebrews chapter 13 verse 5 my whole life. I will never leave you nor forsake you. But in that moment, I felt its truth in my bones. He hadn't abandoned me in the cold or left me in my loneliness. He was in it with me, the payoff. That moment changed everything. I started to understand that God hadn't made me uncomfortable to punish me, but to prepare me. This whole trip wasn't a test I was failing, it was a classroom. The unkindness shattered my pride, forcing me to learn what humility feels like. The cold stripped away my reliance on worldly comforts, forcing me to find warmth in His presence alone. The isolation silenced all the other noise, forcing me to finally listen. This is what divine discomfort is all about. It's the process of God lovingly disrupting our lives to pull us closer to Him. I realized that my comfortable faith wasn't real faith at all, it was just a preference. Real faith is forged in fire and refined through trials. I had been clinging so tightly to God's gifts, but He wanted me to cling to Him. The Apostle Paul wrote, "My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness." 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 9. I finally understood that. My weakness wasn't a barrier to God, it was the entry point for His power. My moments of feeling useless, cold, and alone were the very moments His grace was most available, most powerful, and most real. It was in that barren place that I discovered the profound truth that God's grace grows best right where our comfort dies. CTA and conclusion. When I came home, I was different. The trip didn't give me some heroic, mountaintop story. It gave me something way more valuable, a scar. It gave me a faith that wasn't dependent on my feelings or my circumstances. It gave me a faith that had been tested and had, by God's grace, survived. It saved my faith by wrecking it first. Maybe you're in an uncomfortable place right now. Maybe you feel cold, or lonely, or like your efforts are going completely unnoticed. Maybe you're praying, and all you hear is silence. I just want to encourage you. That discomfort might not be a sign that God has abandoned you. It might be a sign that He is right there with you, doing His deepest and most important work. Challenges aren't just obstacles, they're opportunities for real spiritual growth. God isn't nearly as interested in our comfort as He is in our character. He loves you too much to leave you the way you are. And sometimes, that means leading us into the uncomfortable, into the wilderness, so we can finally discover that He is all we truly need. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. Share a time in the comments when God used an uncomfortable situation to grow your faith. Your story could be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. And if you want more stories about finding God in unexpected places, please subscribe and join our community. Don't lose heart in the hardship. That's where faith becomes fire.